Is silver on the retail side starting to have liquidity problems? Well, that's the question we're going to be looking at today. Before we do that, I wanted to talk just a little bit about what the market has done today. Today is Tuesday, January the 20th of 2026. It's the day after Martin Luther King Day, so the market is fully open. Yesterday it did trade on the futures market and on the spot market, but it was a little bit of a subdued trade. So now we're wide open again, the first day that you can say everybody's probably all back from vacation, and so we've got a pretty good idea of fair market anyway today in the silver market. And so I just wanted to point out what we have done today. Today we opened up at $94.22, just a little bit above our high part of the range that we started setting about a week ago. It got all the way up to $95.99, but it's also dropped as low as $92.52. And right now it's kind of hovering around the unchanged mark. It's about 13 cents higher than it opened at. It's at $94.35. And so it's a little bit too early to say that we're breaking out of this recent range, but we're looking really, really good. If we were looking good yesterday for that possibility, then today we're looking even stronger than that. And so we'll see what tomorrow brings. Typically, you can't really say you've had a breakout until it goes above a resistance line with conviction. And by that, I mean it closes about $1 or $2 higher than the resistance line on good volume. Today, I think we've had fairly decent volume. I checked the March contract on the COMEX, and it said 195,000 contracts, which is a pretty large amount of contracts. It's nearly 1 billion ounces of silver, but I'm not sure that they weren't including yesterday's total, which had about 370 million ounces for that. And so the reason I say I'm not sure if they're including it or not is because today's price includes yesterday's increase for their increase for the day. So it's a little bit confusing on the COMEX March futures contract as far as the way they're reporting it today. But again, it looks like we're having fairly decent volume on that. We are, again, hovering over this past resistance line, a very recent resistance line. And so we'll watch and see what it does tomorrow. If it drops back below this, I think at the very least we can say we have a new top or a new resistance line, but I think you're still going to be looking at the same range for that. And again, we broke out on Monday, the 12th, above a 2-week resistance line at 83.96, and did so with conviction. It just kept going up after that, and so that's where we find ourselves right now. The reason I like ranges is because when I trade mining stocks, it kind of helps me to know at what part of the range that we're at. I kind of prefer to be selling the mining stocks at the top end of the range and buying them back at the low end of the range when we're in a range. Again, this is really recent, kind of a stretch of the imagination to call it a range, but for those of you who are interested in things like that, that's where we're at right now. So I thought it would be good to go ahead and look at that. We are today, if it closes right now, it will be a brand new all-time record closing high. We certainly achieved an all-time intraday high today at nearly $96. And so again, silver's doing very well, very healthy, and so something to keep an eye on. We're getting awful close to that $100 mark, and obviously anytime you get big round numbers, you have a little bit of psychological resistance at those areas. Whether we do it 100 or not, whether we get there or not, remains to be seen. So just something to kind of give an idea of where we're at today. I really wanted to talk about a situation that has started to really be showing up more and more prominently in the last, probably 5 or 6 days with our retail market, particularly with our local coin dealers. I think a lot of you have a local coin dealer that you really like doing business with. They're probably friends of yours if you've been doing business with them for very long, and so you've got a good idea of typically what they're going to charge you in relationship to spot, both when you buy and when you sell back. But in the last week, the sellback prices especially at the local coin stores, has really taken a hit. As a matter of fact, their entire business model has taken a hit because they got a notice last Tuesday from the nation's largest refinery that they were no longer going to be buying fabricated silver and the 999 silver. If they wanted immediate payment, well, they were going to have to take $15 back of spot. I don't know of any local coin dealer that can do that, and so right now they're kind of in a flux right now. There's been a number of local coin dealerships around the nation who have just stopped buying back, momentarily at least, until they see what's going to happen. And there was some talk about this months ago. Some of the dealers were talking about if the price ever did get to $100, which at the time seemed unrealistic, that they might have to close their doors or at least temporarily suspend their business. And in fact, some of them are doing just that. The big dealers the big local coin store dealers that I'm familiar with have certainly not closed their doors, but they are starting to have to look at it a little bit differently because now just about all of their business is going to have to be in-house. And by that, I mean they're going to have some kind of an equilibrium between what they buy on a daily basis and what they sell on a daily basis, or their inventory is going to get so high and they're going to have so much money invested in that inventory that they can no longer afford to continue to buy coins back, even from their good customers. And so this is something that I felt like a lot of you have already been aware of. You've probably seen a number of videos on it in the last week. But again, it does appear that we're starting to have some suggestions of a liquidity problem on the retail side. When we start looking at the COMEX, the LBMA, the Shanghai futures, they're not having any liquidity problems whatsoever. They're business as usual. It seems like they're setting new all-time highs on a daily basis. And so they're doing fine. Obviously, when we talk about those, they're a set price. You don't have any back and forth like you do at the local coin shops where maybe in this region of the country they're able to pay a little bit more, and in this region of the country they have to pay a lot less. And so when we talk about the futures markets, when we talk about the big exchanges, they're very healthy, continue to experience very good demand, and so that part of the market is doing very well, and that's the main part of the market. The retail side may be, 5%, 10% of the overall market, but at the same time, that's the part that we're interested in the most. We like following the daily prices on Kitco and on the COMEX and other exchanges. We really like to go to Shanghai and see that they're about $10 over where the COMEX is typically at. And so we like to talk about those prices, but you and I are not going to be able to get those prices, at least not very likely, unless we have some kind of an unusual sales agreement with either our coin store or with friends, or we have our own network. Which brings me to another point. There are starting to be some networks that are popping up. One of the viewers emailed me and told me that he's involved in a private network. It's kind of a club. It's a number of people who have bought and sold silver for a number of years, just individuals. A lot of them are friends. They know each other. They can trust each other. And so they've just got their own little network that they're able to buy and sell off of, and they're buying and selling much closer to spot on that. And so if you can find something like that, then you might certainly be able to get a little bit fairer of a price, or at least closer to what we're seeing reported on spot. But if you can't, understand that the market is getting softer on the retail side as far as our ability to be able to sell back anywhere near spot. I mentioned last week I sold some 90%. I believe it was on Monday for $8.50 below spot, and then by Friday I had to take $12 below spot for 90%, and that was the best price I could find from anybody that was actually buying. And so that went down fairly rapidly. I looked at some of the quotes, at least from two of the big dealers, the nationwide dealers. I noticed that JM Bullion is paying $19 under spot for their 90%, And then SD Bullion is still paying about $12 under spot for their 90%. And of course, these are their advertised prices. Listen to a video from a gentleman from the Minot area. He owns a coin store there. Matter of fact, I looked at two videos in the last couple of days. One, I believe, was by Silver Seeker interviewing this gentleman, but then he's also got his own YouTube channel. And it was really interesting to watch and hear him talk about how last week unfolded. On Tuesday or Wednesday, he got an email from the big refinery that he deals with, and they told him that they were going to have to start paying $15 back of spot for $9.99. I believe he had gotten a phone call in the middle of the day before that, giving him a heads up on that, and so he had to immediately adjust his prices with his customers because he had so much money invested in it, and now he wasn't sure he was going to be able to unload that silver in time to be able to have a fresh supply of capital so he could continue to buy from, especially from his good customers. And so I think he's done what some of the other ones have done. People are getting creative, these local coin stores, as far as having flash sales. I noticed Vermilion has had several flash sales in the last couple of days, trying to get to a point where they can still buy from their customers. And so appreciate these local coin stores doing that. If you're interested in buying right now, maybe even for under spot, this would be the time to call around some of these different coin dealers and just find out what they're selling for. If you're like me and you really like 90%, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at some of the premium discounts that you can get today. And so if you're buying, this liquidity problem that the coin dealers are starting to have is going to work in your favor. But if you're selling, you might find out that you're going to be taking quite a hit below spot if they're even going to buy it from you in the first place. Others have talked about the idea of just starting to sell more on eBay. You can usually get much closer to market value on eBay, but you're still going to have to pay about a 15% seller's premium on that between the eBay fees and the PayPal fees. And so you want to keep that in mind. You're still probably looking at taking significantly below spot value, and you're going to have to deal with a buyer, and you're going to have to mail it. On the other hand, if you can get above spot for it, if you've got some premium silver, you probably will be able to, and you might be able to get a little bit more on auction sites such as that, as opposed to just going to your local dealer right now. So, are we starting to experience some liquidity problems on the retail side? And the answer is we absolutely are. How long will they last? Will they get worse? Well, nobody really knows on that. One of the things that we do know is that their last resort for the local coin dealers after their wholesalers was in fact the refineries. And with the refineries paying way below spot price, well, you can imagine what's going to happen to the wholesalers unless their demand picks up on the buying side. So if it does not, in the retail side, I think you can expect this liquidity crunch, if you will, to continue to last. Again, if you're buying, you don't intend to sell, that is not a problem for you. As a matter of fact, it's actually a bonus, because now you're going to be able to find somebody somewhere that's probably going to sell you the silver that you're looking for at below spot price. The exceptions to that are going to be the U.S. Eagles, which still seem to be in pretty good demand. But again, even the 999 fine silver that had been experiencing good demand is now taking a pretty big hit. So just something to keep in mind if you are planning on selling anytime soon. You might want to take that into your calculus as far as whether you want to go ahead and pull the trigger now, or if you just want to sit back and wait, if you can afford to wait. If you can't, this may be an instance of the sooner the better, but if you can't afford to wait, well, sometimes these things have a way of working themselves out. I am convinced that the 90% market at some point is going to turn around. It's just been about 2 years since we were receiving a premium over spot for 90%. I think 2.5 years ago I was selling for $10 over spot. But again, I sold just this last week for $12 under spot, so it's a remarkably different situation right now. They do turn around. How long it'll take, who knows? But just keep that in mind. We've had a lot of melt in the 90% this year. None of us like that in this particular community, but it's a fact of life. And since it is a fact of life, it's something important to understand that that will lower the population of available pre-65 90% silver. And I believe that will make all of us who hold 90% silver I think it will put us in a very good position, especially as time goes by. Well, that's the video for today. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. There's been some really good information in those comments. I've even had several people privately message me and alert me to certain circumstances. And for those of you who have done that, I think Jason was one and Andrew was another. I sincerely appreciate the information you've passed along. But if you have a comment and you'd like to share it, please do that. I appreciate those of you who have subscribed to the channel, and certainly thank you for watching all the way through today. But that's the video for today. I hope you'll be able to figure out everything as we try and navigate this particular liquidity crisis that we seem to find ourselves in, at least at the development point right now. Appreciate your watching. God bless.